Okay. We're going to go over the proposed amendments to appear on the November the 4th ballot statewide. We have 5. So the first one is proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Alabama to prohibit the state of Alabama from giving full faith and credit to public acts, records, or judicial proceedings of another state that violate the public policy of the state of Alabama, and to prohibit the application of foreign law in violation of rights guaranteed natural citizens by the United States and Alabama constitutions and the statutes, laws, and public policies thereof, but without application to business entities. What is all that saying? Oh, God. I went to the analysis of the amendments and trying to do a little research. I would vote no on this, and because this background of this amendment is such that 32 or more state legislators have had bills introduced that contain one or more of the provisions outlined in this amendment. The earlier versions of this amendment was called Sharia law, but more recent legislation focused on the wording on foreign law in general. So it exempts business entities from the impact of the amendment. And it's just not a good law to have. So no. Vote no on that. Trial courts, particular family relation courts, take religious law into consideration as long as they do not conflict with existing public policies, such as prenuptial agreements, divorce, and child custody cases. These are a few examples. The federal judge invalidated the Oklahoma amendment, which passed in Oklahoma, the same kind of amendment using the Sharia law. So the decision said that the amendment violated the Constitution's First Amendment of freedom of religion provision. So I'm just saying, just vote no on that. Amendment 2, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Alabama as amended relating to the Capital Improvement Trust Fund to increase the amount of general obligation bonds authorized herein to provide for additional payments from the Alabama Trust Fund to fund any bond issued, to provide for competitive bidding of the bonds, and to provide for the distribution of the proceeds for plans, construction, and maintenance of Alabama National Guard armories. I will vote no on that. I will vote no. I just believe that we need to just find a better way to pay our bonds off. The funds, they said the funds will be raised by issuing bonds that must be repaid in 20 years. The Alabama Trust Fund proceeds would be used to repay the bond. Now, it says the Legislative Fiscal Office estimate that the potential cost of the trust fund to be about $3.7 million per year for 20 years. The Alabama Trust Fund is funded by revenues generated by oil and gas production in the Gulf of Mexico. And the recent economic downturn reduced revenues coming into the fund. So, I just... no, vote no on that. Proposed statewide amendment number 3. I'm still having a hard time on proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Alabama to provide that every citizen has a right to bear arms, fundamental right to bear arms, and that any restriction on this right would be subject to strict scrutiny, and to provide that no international treaty or law shall prohibit, limit, or otherwise interfere with a citizen's fundamental right to bear arms. And, I mean, really, if this bill passes, it will elevate gun ownership to the level of a fundamental right. It would mean that any attempts to establish curbs on that right would be subject to the highest level of scrutiny in the courts. Now, this and similar legislation, according to the League of Women Voters Alabama, um, said that it is a defensive move in response to efforts made by the United Nations to establish a legally enforceable arms trade treaty to control illegal arms sales and thereby reduce war, terrorism, and other action that destabilize nations. President Obama has given basic support to this effort, and in September 2013, the ATT was signed by Secretary of State John Kerry, but it has not been ratified by the Senate. Basically, under the Constitution, we still have a right to own guns. It is basically a treaty to stop the illegal weapons trade in an attempt to add stability to the international system. But you know how we get laws twisted up in Alabama, and they'll make it more than what it is. So, Alabama New South is suggesting that people vote no on that. So that's Alabama New South for Amendment 3, no. For Amendment 4, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Alabama to prohibit a general law whose purpose or effect is to require a new or increased expenditure of at least $50,000 of local funds annually from becoming effective with regard to a city or county board of education without enactment by a 2/3 vote. I said yes. On number 5, basically proposing an amendment to the Constitution to amend Amendment 597, blah, 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 that clarified that people have the right to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife, subject to reasonable regulations that promote conservation and management of fish and wildlife and preserve the future of hunting and fishing. As a hunter and fisherwoman, yes, I will vote yes. You know, leave us alone. Let's go take down some deer, fish, as long as it's in legal boundaries. And I can deal with reasonable regulations, paying my little fees for my hunting license and fishing license. And that is all with the statewide amendments. So let's go over them again. Amendment 1, no. Amendment 2, no. Amendment 3, kind of hard to follow through with. I would say no. 4 and 5, yes. So those are my choices. Alabama New South says 1 no, 2 yes, 3 no, 4 and 5 yes. If you have any questions, you can look on my Facebook page, Karen Jones, and I will post up the press release from Alabama New South and the link to the Alabama, the League of Women Voters Alabama, so that you could read more in detail the analysis of these amendments, which are also important. Get out to vote November the 4th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.